right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at 4:50 p.m. Start with roll call. Alder Galvin?
Here.
Alder Johnson?
Here.
Alder Hankfuss?
Here.
All right, and myself are present. Entertain a motion approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. On to regular business. Number 1, consideration with possible action to approve the assignment of the option to purchase agreement for tax parcel number 15-169, 501 South Washington Street, Fire Station number 1, from EMR LLC to MOWGS LLC. Any questions?
Staff want to give an overview?
You want to start?
This was part of the deal when we purchased the Press Gazette building. We had options placed in the Fire Station 1. And what we want to do is we want to reassign that option from Murray Weichel, who was the original realtor, to Brian Kosmowski and his group with a local person who'd like to do some redevelopment on that fire station. We're in favor of it. We want to keep it local and keep it in local hands, and I think the developer has some good ideas for that. So all the terms would stay the same as the original option transfer when we work this out.
Correct.
This is just really an assignment of that.
And that was just the two things, that I'm trying to recall from when we did this. One was, that whatever redevelopment would be proposed for that site, whether it's requesting public assistance or not, would still come forward for oversight and approval. And the second thing
Correct.
was prioritizing historical preservation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and they'll stay the same.
Great.
They're here if you have any questions specifically about the project, which isn't, it's in the formation stages, right?
Sure.
But they have time to do that, so
Okay.
we're in favor of it.
Perfect. Alderick?
I just wanted to clarify, so the Green Bay Press Gazette does not want to exercise the option to purchase it? Is that my understanding?
The sellers of the building, right. So they retained an option as part of the whole transaction for us to purchase the Press Gazette building. And so that's one of the options that they had. So it was a part cash payment, part options.
Mm-hmm.
So for Fire Station 1, they want to transfer that option to another party.
Okay.
Do you guys want to speak?
Only if there's questions. I mean, it'll be a fun project. We hope to keep it in the community with good tenants and something that will add to downtown for sure.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. I know the plans will come forward when the time is right, so we'll wait until that happens. But I have no problem keeping that option here. The whole point of the option, right, was to give us the ability to do some type of appropriate redevelopment on that site. I think it's a really nice property that represents and captures a lot of Green Bay's history, and obviously we would love to be able to preserve as much of that as possible, and eager to see the plans when they come forward.
Absolutely, we'll share when we're done.
Put a little brass plaque on the door. Bill Galvin delivered newspapers here in 1970. Just
Throwing it out there. There's a lot of recommendations tonight from us alders. Any other
I would
questions?
make a motion to approve.
second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Number 2, consideration with possible action to approve the purchase of 18 2025 Ford Police Interceptor utility hybrid vehicles for a total of $1,005,993 using 2025 borrowing. Any questions?
Just one.
Mm-hmm.
Chief, have we purchased any hybrids before for squad cars?
We have.
Working out pretty good?
We had some problems with them in the past with two things. There's an issue that officers have with acceleration, which Ford tells us they've fixed, and then a bigger problem with something in the interface between the battery and the gas power that would break. And it was a very expensive fix, but we figured out that if we just pay a couple $1,000 extra for the extended warranty, we can cover that if it happens to one of these cars, and the way they're used, they have to be left on idling a lot. So we'll save a lot of gas and then engine miles. We have fully gas-powered cars with the equivalent of 500,000 miles on them in less than 3 years because of how long they're left running.
Okay.
So we believe, as long as we get the extended warranty to cover this mechanical issue that can happen, we might be able to get up to 5 years out of these cars.
That's a lot.
So we're gonna try it.
Yeah. So how much of the fleet are you anticipating starting out? Just these 18?
Yes.
And we're running, what, about 40 or 50 marked squads?
Oh, probably not that many right now. We also have a problem, just over the years, our marked patrol fleet has shrunk because of availability of cars and not bonding enough, and so we've corrected all those problems, and so we'll have to catch up for a little while, but
Okay.
we think that if we do a couple years at the pace we're used to, and then we start getting 5 years a car out of them, we can expand the fleet back to where it needs to be and get ourselves on the right track. And then eventually reduce the number of cars we have to bond for every year.
So that's quite a bit of savings, not only in fuel, but also in expenses for the vehicles.
Yeah, there's some risks, but it's a strategy that that hopefully will work to save us some money in the out years.
All right. Oh, good, thank you.
I have a question about the battery in those vehicles. What's the cost to replace that, and what's the life expectancy on those?
We have not had to replace a battery in one of those cars in all the hybrids we've had. I'm not sure right off the top of my head. I'd have to get back to you on exactly what the manufacturer says, how long Ford says those last, but I believe anything that happens to that in the first 100,000 miles will be covered under the extended warranty as well.
Okay.
But that has not been a problem for us with other hybrid cars that we've had up to this point.
Okay, I just want to check, because it's my understanding those batteries are a little more expensive than normal.
They are very expensive, yes.
Okay, and it's only covered to 100,000 miles?
Yes.
Normally, we get 3 years out of these though, right?
Right.
Not the hybrids, but the other squads that we've had are 3-year
We get-
rotation. And
We get 3 years in part because we're miling them out right at about 100,000 miles, and we're racking up 100,000 miles in these cars in 3 years. But as the cost of these cars keeps going up, we really need to find ways to get more years of life out of them. And like I said, sure, there's a risk that maybe the battery dies in one of them before we're done with it at 150 or so thousand miles. But even if we can add 50,000 actual miles we can get on it and reduce that idle time that we're having with all gas-powered cars, so that they don't have, again, a functional equivalent of 400,000 or 500,000 miles on them in 3 years. That's how we think we can get to 5 years. And yeah, there are always risks, but this looks like a little smarter business decision, at least at this point, given what's available out there.
does our current mechanic shop have the expertise to service the hybrids?
Between them and the dealership that we work with, yes. And, we use the dealership obviously for any warranty repairs. But yeah, they've got enough, we've had enough of these go through the fleet over the years that they're pretty well versed in them.
Great.
Have you talked to other municipalities that have done hybrid to see how it's been working out for them, if they've done it longer than us?
We haven't. I have a little experience with them from somewhere else, and same kind of issues. There's always the worry about the batteries, but I've just never actually seen that amount to much. And then you'll hear from officers about, and this is not new to Ford's hybrid cars. I can remember Ford gas-powered cars that I've used over the years that have some acceleration problems kind of in the middle of the range. That's about all you hear.
Okay.
But in general, the Ford FIU is, having seen other manufacturers of cars and how those hold up, not to disparage other manufacturers, but for our use and for the kind of climate that we live in here and all of the total picture of police vehicle use here, that FIU is by far the best thing out there for us.
Okay. Any other questions?
Your motion to approve?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Number 3, consideration with possible action to accept the 2024 JAG of $49,368 to be used for police equipment good through 9/30/27. Question.
Move to approve?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Number 4, consideration with possible action on the acceptance of the Northeast Wisconsin Healthcare Emergency Response Coalition grant for $5,000, local match of $583 to use for Tactic EMS team equipment.
Move to approve. Congratulations.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Number 5, consideration with possible action to approve the purchase of a used road grader for the Brooks tractor and new plowing wing Monroe truck equipment for a total of $135,789 from the DPW fund balance. Any questions for staff?
Just one.
Yep.
How old is this vehicle that we're buying?
The used one,
Yeah,
it's a 2013 with 10,000 hours on it.
okay. Mileage I can understand, hours, how is that rate?
It's not new.
It's not, is it grandma's tractor or is it someone else's tractor?
It's been used, but we use these graders for snow plowing in the winter. So it's not going to get a lot of hours,
Sure.
and roughly 135,000, 136,000 is a lot more palatable number than 550.
Well, I get it. I'm just asking, because I've heard, the mayor's ride in one of our plow trucks, how interesting that was.
It's been retired now.
Yeah. You wrecked the truck?
Now, that one actually died during the last snow plowing event.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking. I mean, I know you guys look into this stuff, but is 10,000 hours, is that a worry for us, or is that something that's just
The fleet manager went down and personally inspected it, and he thinks that this is a approved purchase.
a good deal? Okay, thank you.
And Director Grenier, this is essentially replacing a unit that we currently rent, is that right?
Matter of fact, it's replacing Unit 852 that we owned,
Oh, yeah,
that we
okay.
could not get parts for anymore, so it had to be retired.
Right, so the other option would be to continue to rent, to replace that unit,
Or
which is
purchase.
getting more and more difficult to find, right?
Correct. Or
Okay.
purchase at a cost of over $500,000.
Yep, understood, okay.
Any other questions for staff?
No.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Number 6, consideration of possible action to approve allocations of interest income obtained from the ARPA fund.
Do we want to take these all as one or
Separate.
separate?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know if there's any all-encompassing conversation. One of the things I think that we had requested last month was to get a better sense of what some of the other departmental needs were that were out there. And of course, we have 3 items in here. And I know that there's a listing as well of maybe some anticipated requests that might come forward at some point. I don't know, Director Ellenbecker, if you've got any comments on that? I mean, are there other departmental needs that are not being captured here, or how did we narrow in or hone in on these 3?
I think these 3 items are really items that just have, the need is right now, but that we are looking to replace these, and at this point, we cannot find another funding source. It did get borrowed, we didn't put it in the 25 borrowing request for one reason or another. We tried to document why. It wasn't in the 24 budget, and it is something that we really would like to replace in 25, or have a need in 25, and just don't have another funding source. And so that is how these items are being brought to you today.
Do you have a sense of when these other items might come forward? The pending requests? And are there any other additional pending requests? And in particular, I'm looking at public safety, right, for the NFL draft, and I know there's some stuff in the state budget, but do we, even if I'm looking at that balance on there, right, do we have a sense of what that number might come in at, notwithstanding whatever the state might or might not do?
I do know that there's a meeting coming up on Thursday to kind of try to get a financial picture of what the draft will cost. That's an estimate.
Okay.
As far as these other items, these are just other items that at one point, there was a request someone might have mentioned ARPA interest if they weren't able to find another funding source. And so really, in most cases, the goal is to try to find, if you have another funding source, is another way that you could fund these projects. If not, I had heard it was mentioned as an ARPA interest request, and so it got added to the spreadsheet.
Okay, and then the cashiering one, I mean, that makes sense to me, especially if it's about to crash, it sounds like, or...
Yeah, the equipment was, we knew it wasn't keeping up, and we weren't updating the software, and it really slowed down after we did the last upgrade to the main software in fall. And at that point, it was past budget time, and that this $25,000, because of the several different pieces of equipment and software, that it wouldn't qualify for a capital and bonding request. So it really is slowing down, and Linda can talk to it if needed, but it's really the system is slowing down, and the equipment no longer like scans the front and back of the checks, and it just doesn't do the same what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I agree with everything.
Isn't there, do we own this software, or is this software that we purchase that when there's updates, we would upgrade it? That's not how this works?
This is, I will let IT director potentially talk to this also. This is an add-on to our Munis software, and our Munis software is updated almost on an annual basis, but this is an add-on, and so we just had not continued to upgrade that one because we knew we needed new equipment, and at that point we were limping along and just not upgrading that one, staying with the old equipment we had. Now that we've gotten too many versions out away from the main software, now our equipment is no longer keeping up, and the software is slowing down. Linda, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
No, it's just part of our Tyler Munis contract, our ERP system. And cashiering is like Diana said, is a separate module that a few of the departments use. And we've just been noticing a slowdown of all the cashiering functions. And in order to speed things up, we would have to do an upgrade, which would require new equipment.
Does this mean that everybody that's running credit cards or paying for building permits or whatever, they're all going to be using the same equipment for that, or is this something different than that?
Right now, the equipment is being replaced. The request is for transit, the clerk's office, and also permitting up on 6th floor. So those are the three main offices that will be using this.
So then the rest of the offices are using something else?
Yes, Parks uses their own software that is not Tyler Cashiering. I'm trying to think of anybody else that would be collecting money. Parks is really the next big one.
And parking utility has
Parking utility has their own, yes.
And have we looked at trying to consolidate these across so we aren't, because then my question would be, then how many other systems are we maintaining also for that?
Right, I think that is a subject that our tech governance committee is actually looking at right now, trying to consolidate and look at other pieces of software. I think organically, over the years, the departments have gone with different software options. But yes, I would love to consolidate.
The thing too that I will talk to is like parking utility, and they have just a much different special need because it tracks all the tickets that are issued, people can pay them online, it goes with the app, so that is why they would be received through that software. And then Parks program has something called RecTrack, which allows them to do all their rentals of all their shelters and all the classes and all the programs that they're in. So again, just a different need, and that software then they're able to program through it and receipt through it. In both cases, there's imports that happen that come from their software that end up in Tyler Munis. We have an export-import that comes into our systems.
No, I understand, but if it's a muni system, all the muni systems have park systems, and I just, you know, from the perspective of, I'm hearing we have multiple systems. Every time a system goes through an upgrade, are we adding to those? I mean, how are we trying to slim it down to get as close to one as possible?
I think it's something.
Is that you're looking at me like I have four heads?
No, very valid question. I think that it is something that we could work towards. It will be difficult and time consuming, let's just say that, but I think that whenever a new piece of software is requested, that it will be going through our tech governance committee, and that is something that we would look at, whether we have a piece of software that could be used rather than a new request. I don't know, Dave, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, we have looked at combining stuff. Munis does have a park and rec, they have parking stuff, but we have the ramps, very specific needs with the gates and controllers. So that is really a separate system just because Tyler Munis doesn't support any of that functionality. The RecTrack system is for Bay Beach mainly. They have POS systems, they sell concessions. That's typically a park and rec thing that most municipalities don't have, so that wouldn't be included in Munis. So these systems have specifics that really we can't find in Munis or other big systems.
And I understand that, but when we're talking about a $25,000 or $30,000 upgrade, you know, that backs into what that system costs. So, you know, how much is that of the revenue that gets taken in?
Yeah, the request for
That's a small amount.
the software includes also some new equipment that we have deferred for many, many years. It's the small printers that, again, they print out the receipt and they also will scan the front and back of the checks. And we bought them in 2013, so we have been deferring them for, delay the purchase for many years. So it's equipment and it's a slight increase for the software. Back to when we brought on the new ERP system in 2013, I don't know if the IT director remembers at that point, but we took the number of software systems and we shrunk it by a lot. So we really did slim it down. Believe it or not, it sounds like we still have a lot more, but we went from a lot to now we at least have a handful of software programs that still work with our ERP system.
Yeah, and maybe it would help to understand all the different systems and the amounts that we've spent on them, excluding police and fire. You know, especially as we go forward and we start looking at ARPA dollars, if there's, you know, instead of looking at just something small, do we look at bigger and say, we're gonna move everybody to Muni, and then, and I know that's a broad statement, but continuing to maintain a lot of side systems isn't always effective either, so. But I would move to approve on this one.
Any other questions for staff?
Do you want to break them up, or do you still want to have the high conversation?
Yeah, I do have a question for Chief Annette. I know when we spoke, I know you mentioned up to 150. Now, did you say 100,000 of that is being reallocated from other ARPA funds that were for the police?
No, we actually talked about pulling that one from tonight's discussion.
Okay.
Just to get some a little more information for the group.
Okay. And then, Director Ellenbecker, sorry, we can always talk about this more later. Do you have any information that you can supply the public as far as, like, with the ARPA interest, at what % are we actually getting interest off of the ARPA funds? If we don't rush to use these, like I asked last time, as of now, we know there's no deadline as to using these funds. So ultimately, interest is accruing, and I guess my question is what's the rush in spending them? Can you provide any information as to what we're getting off of the ARPA and what this balance, or obviously the interest that we have right now was from the ARPA funds sitting. With the ARPA funds that are left, do you know what we would accrue with interest projected?
For the remainder of this year, based on the interest rates that we have, my guess would be we would probably earn another $500,000 yet this year. I mean, we can certainly look at, we have one account that all this dollars are put in, so we would know exactly what our interest rate that we are getting for a return on it. That could be easily looked up.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other questions on this, Alder Johnson?
Dave, the timing of this, I mean, the explanation makes sense, right? It's just more expensive than when you bid it out a couple of years ago. Is that something that you are actively installing right now?
Well, it's in 3 phases. Phase 1 and 2 are pretty much done. That was about half the money. The final component is the sand, and the technology changed since it's the last one. Prices have gone up. The lead times are pushing out to 4 or 5 months now, so we want to get it ordered so we can get it done this year.
Okay. Okay, I would make a motion, well, actually, technically, Alder Hinkfist made a motion. But
Do I
what
take these one on one, or one by one though, because,
Yeah, and I wasn't clear if Alder Hinkfist, if your motion was just for the 25,000?
No, it's to move forward with the whole kit and caboodle,
Okay.
not just the 30.
So since we're gonna
The whole
pull,
kit.
since we're gonna pull the,
You haven't even talked about all of them yet.
we're just, only the ones in yellow are in front of us tonight.
maybe just fail her motion.
Right, it's just the 3 in yellow. The
That's the
police,
best way to handle it.
the 30, and can't remember what the other one was. Data center.
Did she just say the 30?
She did. I don't want to second that.
Okay, do any second? Okay, that motion fails due to
Yeah.
lack of a second.
I would make a motion to authorize the 25,000 for the cashiering equipment and the 135,000 for the data center.
Second.
I don't know if Alder Hinkfist understood that the chief was asking to have the one.
Yeah, Alder
Yeah,
Hinkfist, if
that's-
you didn't hear,
I think that's the
Chief
one.
is asking to hold his item, which is why we failed your motion.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
This meeting is much harder to hear in the
Yeah.
finance committee. was.
So the motion I just
Weird.
made was to authorize the other two.
Yep, absolutely.
I guess my question, though, you said that there's a meeting on Thursday talking about potentially bringing some of the equipment and functions together? I mean, is there a harm in,
No, there's a meeting on Thursday to talk about expenses related to the draft.
oh, sorry, I apologize, okay. Okay.
You know, not to make you guys jealous, but I just ordered a new device for our credit card thing and it was $50.
Oh,
I know it's very different.
Wow, thanks.
Actually, 59, sorry.
I mean, the painting.
An extra $9
With the fees and
matters.
taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 7, consideration with possible action on a request by Department of Public Works to abate, asbestos and complete building renovations on 729 Day Street for the Police Department Evidence Storage Facility, an estimated cost of $250,000. Questions for staff?
We've approved a plan already for Day Street, correct? So this isn't in addition.
This is in
Or is it?
addition. We approved a lease, this is separate.
Okay.
Chief Davis, do you want to speak to this at all?
Sure, so
Or would it be
we,
Chief Davis?
and this is something that we've been working with Director Grenier and DPW on for a while now. We leased this building on a long-term lease, I want to say
20 years.
20-year lease, now a year and a half or 2 years ago. We've gotten to the point where we're trying to do the tenant improvements for it, and we've discovered that all of the interior of the outside walls are covered with this insulation stuff that's asbestos. So all of that has to come out, and then this is also to pay the costs of turning that into an evidence storage facility. And we need to get out of the facility where all of our large evidence and other equipment is stored down on South Broadway, because there's some development plans in the pipeline for that apparently the city's been working on for quite a while. So this, and the asbestos problem we just found out about,
A couple of months ago.
yeah, 2-3 months ago, when we started trying to get into the project and get it done.
Is it standard when you're going into a lease to look for potential issues like asbestos or a leaky roof or, you know, bad
Not
foundation?
until we decided to put holes in the wall for overhead garage doors.
So we didn't know about, right, does the landlord or the owner have an obligation to inform potential tenants there's a carcinogen within the building that they're renting
The
out?
landlord wouldn't have looked for this until we decided to cut a hole through the insulation. The act of cutting the hole in the insulation to allow for the garage doors to go in is what caused them to take a look to determine whether it was asbestos containing.
I understand that. What I don't know is, did the landlord build that building, or did he just
No.
buy it as is?
He bought it as is.
So he had no knowledge that there was asbestos?
Correct, there was no prior knowledge.
And this building is going to satisfy the PD's needs?
Yeah.
I mean-
Definitely much better facility than the one we're in now.
Do you anticipate moving evidence out of the PD to free up some space there?
If it's possible, one of the variables in that discussion would be the layout in the Press Gazette building. But there would be room probably to move all of the evidence that we have stored in our facility.
Well, the last time I looked at the evidence yard was when it was on Quincy, and I think there were 50 vehicles out there.
It's not that many now. I don't know the exact number, but I want to say it's a couple dozen. And then this facility also would allow us to store high-profile vehicles for the SWAT team, the mobile response team, and other specialized units.
So we'll have one central location for all our vehicles, which again would probably open up more space at the PD.
It would make any move in the next few years into the Press Gazette building a lot less complicated.
Because it's just, this is an unanticipated cost, and it's a considerable amount of money. It's a new fire rig potentially, if we get a real small one. And, but there's a lot we could do with this. And so it's just,
Well, one thing to consider is this is not bonded money or budgeted money. This is the second phase of a relocation from us having to come off of the Quincy site as a function of the Green Bay packaging development. So this qualifies as a relocation expense under TID 21. This will not impact taxpayer at all. It's 100% being underwritten by the TID.
okay, yeah, that's there at the bottom. So when it says it's eligible, that means it will happen that way. All right. Makes it a little bit easier, but still, you hate to run into these things.
Well, the mayor's heard me tell him repeatedly, I don't like to spend money, and I'm recommending that you do this. Either we pay for it up front and get the work done immediately, or the landlord is gonna request that we renegotiate the lease, and we're gonna pay for it over the next 20
Yeah.
years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Alder Johnson.
Chief, if I recall, and forgive us, it's been a while since we looked at it, but the lease you mentioned was 20 years, but didn't we have an exit clause that we could terminate it sooner?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't want to misinterpret anything you just said, but once, if this, the neighboring building we bought here can accommodate evidence storage, is it the expectation that we would terminate this lease and potentially move this equipment here?
No, because
Or
the
not
Press
evidence,
Gazette
I mean.
building won't hold all of the evidence that we have. What's at the Broadway facility is things like motor vehicles involved in either, homicides or prosecutable traffic crashes, those kind of things that need to be kept secured with a properly accounted for chain of custody and need to be kept out of the elements. And then we have some other large evidence that's stored out there at that facility. And then we have a lot of just equipment stored there. There's another evidence room in the basement of the facility that we're in now that has smaller things like, your drug paraphernalia, firearms, those kind of things. And we'll need to, we would want to be very careful, and we want to be very sure that the security at this facility is sufficient. For example, if we're going to have a large quantity of drugs and evidence stored out there, we need pretty ironclad security. I would not put any of that stuff at the Broadway facility right now because no one's in it most of the time. So we're going to have to work through some of those issues, and I won't know anything about how much space we could even devote to that at the Press-Gazette building until we get the report back from the architect in the next couple of months.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, of course, is, amortizing this amount over 20 years versus 2 years, because we opted for an early termination of the lease is a big difference, right? And 20 years is certainly more palatable, but it leads me to the question of what is prompting, I guess, the requirement to have to remediate the asbestos?
We have to make enough modifications to that building that we're going to make a hole in a wall for a garage door where there isn't one, that will go through all of that asbestos material.
Okay.
2 of them, and the material is not encapsulated at all. So the south half of that building, there is a warehouse, for lack of a better way to describe it, that's going to be converted to the evidence storage location. That's approximately 120 feet by 75 feet. It's just a very large cavern. And if you were to look on the exterior building walls, there is, maybe a 6 or 8 inch thick spray insulation right there on the wall. You can walk up and touch it. That is 73% asbestos, I believe, was what the test result came back. So there's nothing covering it. You walk into that area, there is asbestos containing material that you can reach out and put your hand on that goes 35 feet in the air. You cannot occupy that building safely unless that asbestos gets abated. That's one of the reasons we're not in there yet.
Okay.
Are they removing it or just encapsulating?
Nope, it's coming out.
And so then we have to re-insulate it?
Building owner is going to take care of the insulation.
All right. I would strongly suggest that anybody on the council wants to can go over to the Broadway and just see the massive amount of evidence that's kept there, in so much as soon as the case is adjudicated, until the person that was convicted is released from imprisonment, we have to maintain all that evidence. So there's an entire living room set in there, there's motor vehicles, anything where someone sits in prison or jail, we have to maintain it until they're out. It's a state law. If you were to go to the PD, and I encourage you to go look at how much room that used to be available for police officers to use for classrooms and other things, that now is all totally dedicated to storage. So it's, I know it's been a problem. It's been a concern about chain of evidence. All you have to do is have someone challenge and win on a chain of evidence, and cases are gone. And we can't afford to do that, so.
Alderman?
So my question is would it be more financially feasible to own our own building and not have to do all these modifications possibly?
We have not been able to find a building, certainly not with the price tag this one carries.
Well, I know that the city is going to be taking ownership of some of the schools with the switching, trading off property. I just wondered if that was one of the possibilities.
You're probably going to spend more for the kind of facility that we need for evidence, high-profile, large evidence storage, and then all the high-profile vehicles and those kind of things that we need to keep indoors. A school, you're probably going to spend a lot more money modifying that into something that can get the job done than $250,000.
But we're leasing it, so we don't even own it, we're putting money into it. So that's just a thought.
We are in the lease, right? So we can't just like walk away without any
Well, you said
obligation.
they could- or you
There was,
asked.
there was an early termination option. I don't know all the details, right? But
Yeah.
my point is the lease is executed.
Right.
Yeah.
But we haven't put the 250,000 into it yet.
No, but you're gonna pay on that lease either way.
I only asked because we can get out of the lease, is what I understand.
Yeah, but
I
I
don't
still,
know
I
the
think there's a
details.
minimum requirement in there. I can't,
Yeah.
I don't, without seeing it, I don't know, but, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
So,
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Number 8, consideration with possible action, contingency request for $59,555.58 of unbudgeted 2024 police operating expense incurred at 435 East Walnut Street, building purchase in 2024. Questions for staff? Or discussion?
How close are we to having an idea of this building is gonna work for us?
We were scheduled to meet with the architect at the end of April. I've asked to move that up as early as we can. It sounds like that's gonna happen at the beginning of April, and then what we'll get is just sort of their draft concept of where things could go in there. And then from there, we figure out how much that's gonna cost to build that. And then it's just a matter of getting all that approved and then getting the contracts and you know, the final plans drawn up. It will be a while before we can move into that facility, no matter what happens. I think an optimistic timeline to move in there would be the beginning of 2027. I think the rest of this year, I think the design work will take the rest of this year, which is why we bonded $1 million for design work for this project for this year. And then, you know, lots of risks in this project still, because we still don't even know what we don't know about how this is all going to come together. But if we can get through the design phase this year and then get through construction next year, again, I think it's optimistic, but you're not getting in there before 2027. But it just is what it is, a project like this.
But what you're saying, if I understood correctly, is we're gonna have a thumbs up, thumbs down within another month or so, whether we even start moving ahead to put the PD in there, correct?
I don't know if it'll be a firm thumbs up or thumbs down, but we will have a decision gate to go through in the next couple months if what comes back from the architect is going to meet our needs and looks like a good plan.
All right, because as I'm reading through this repair order, just on the elevators, you know, I see my old buddy Gary McDermott, and I started thinking, are we taking staff from the PD now and shuffling them over here to do work, and how is that impacting the PD and some of their other outlying buildings that have to be maintained? You know, and these are, again, those unanticipated things that you get anytime you buy an older building. You know, like asbestos, I'm sure there's got to be something in there that has got asbestos in it. And so I'm just, you know, I voted for it, and I'm still behind it. I think it has some really good possibilities, but, you know, there's a point where we have to draw the line as a community and say, is this worth it or isn't it? And I'm just eager to see what comes down from the experts in this spring.
And I think I would, you know, we had the ad hoc committee, right, that vetted this along with several other options, and I sort of say I think the conclusion was that this was the most economical and viable option. You know, the one thing, you know, Chief, that I would just at least bring up is, and it's a little off topic, right, but I mean, when we're looking at what's on the agenda here, I mean, the reality is there are just things like water, right, that have to be paid, and that wasn't budgeted because we didn't know we were going to buy it. And so the way this is laid out seems to make sense to me, to pull from the 24 contingency because there is a balance. One of the things, you know, Chief, when I think about the design though, and that's the part that's off topic, is, you know, really contemplating how this whole block interacts with each other, right? And the opportunity to do things like maybe burying power lines or creating a seamless connection between the two buildings, and it's not necessarily tied to that building, but could be incorporated into that design contract. So just wanted to toss that out there.
We're still really early in that process, and I anticipate we'll want some community input too, and how that all comes together.
Sure. As far as this, I mean, the way this is laid out, I would make a motion to approve. This makes the most financial sense to me.
I'll second that.
Sorry, Alder Hengquist, did you have a question?
I'm good right now.
Okay.
A little hard to hear, but I'm following.
Okay, so there was a motion to approve, seconded by Galvin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Informational 2024 contingency amount, $138,000.
Nope, number 9.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're skipping a good part.
Oh, I didn't print out,
Oh, you
sorry.
got your printed,
Just
the old
kidding.
copy, huh?
Sorry about that. Number 9, consideration of possible action on development agreement 25-01 with Hopton Real Estate LLC for the development of 3855 Finger Road, tax parcel 21-24.
Make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I need to read.
Oh, sorry. I thought you read.
The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, subsection 1, subsection E, Wisconsin statute for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The committee may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85, subsection 2, Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Okay, all those in favor of going in closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We are in closed session.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Saying that.
Direct staff to proceed as directed.
Do I have a second?
I will
Second.
second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Informational, 2024 contingency account, $138,788. 2025 contingency account, $100,000. Current federal grants and loan programs awarded to the city by department federal funds, total of $49,129,422.27. The list includes direct and pass-through federal grants and loan programs, as well as awards with federal oversight. Next Finance Committee meeting will be held on March 11th, 2025 at 4:30 PM. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, we are adjourned.